My daughter wore my wife's old coat to school since hers was dirty. An hour later, the principal called shaking, police everywhere. When an officer pulled me aside and showed me what fell from the pocket, I took my daughter and we never went back. I was standing in the hallway of Brookdale Elementary, barely able to breathe, while 2 police officers blocked the door to the nurse's office where my 9-year-old son, Owen, was being kept for his safety. That phrase alone nearly dropped me to my knees. Detective Maria DeSoto held up the evidence bag again, as if I needed another look, like I hadn't already memorized every detail the first time she shoved it in my face. Inside the bag was a vial filled with a pale green liquid and a syringe still in its sterile wrap. The label on the vial read, Compound A17, clinical trial use only. Not approved for pediatrics. Vanguard Research Group. My stomach twisted so hard, I thought I'd vomit right there, on the school's polished floors. Mr. Halston, DeSoto said, her tone steady but her eyes unsettled. Your son says the coat he wore today belonged to your wife. My wife, Jenna. The same woman who'd kissed me goodbye that morning before her shift at St. Luke's Hospital. The same woman who'd texted me an hour ago. Everything good? I love you. That woman. They thought she put illegal medical testing materials in our son's jacket. This is a mistake, I said, but my voice cracked. Jenna would never. Then explain this. DeSoto turned the notebook around. A spiral notebook filled with coded initials, dates, drug doses, and on the last line, written in tiny neat handwriting I recognized instantly, OH 3/19, 0.8 milligrams, observe reaction. OH Owen Halston, my son. The floor felt like it shifted sideways under me. Principal Hargrove stepped forward, wringing her hands. I'm so sorry, Daniel. But these items fell out of Owen's coat pocket during recess. Owen's coat. Jenna's coat. My mind raced backward. To this morning. To the moment Owen came downstairs shivering because his usual puffy blue jacket smelled weird. I barely looked at it. I just told him to grab something from Jenna's side of the closet so he wouldn't miss the bus. I had handed my child a loaded gun without realizing it. Detective DeSoto stepped closer. Mr. Halston, where is your wife right now? At the hospital, I whispered. She should be. No. The detective cut in, already shaking her head. We contacted St. Luke's. She left abruptly 2 hours ago. Claimed it was a family emergency. My mouth went dry. What are you saying? I'm saying your wife is missing, she said. And based on what we found, we believe she may be involved in an off-record pediatric trial connected to Vanguard Research Group. And Mr. Halston. She hesitated. Her expression softened the way cops do right before they drop the kind of truth that ruins your life. We believe your son may have been selected as her next test subject. For a second, reality tilted sideways. The air felt too thick. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Then the detective's radio crackled. DeSoto, be advised, hospital security found footage. Halston's wife left the parking garage in a silver Range Rover. She wasn't alone. A man's voice came through in the background. Looks like Dr. Elias Rennick is with her. I felt like someone shoved a fist inside my chest and squeezed. Dr. Elias Rennick, head of experimental pharmacology at Vanguard. Jenna's mentor. Her brilliant, charming coworker she only ever talked about professionally. The detective turned back to me slowly. Mr. Halston, do you have any reason to believe your wife has been hiding things from you? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because suddenly, I did. More than one. Too many. The detective glanced toward the nurse's office door. We need to move quickly. You and your son are no longer safe in your home. My pulse slammed in my ears. What are you talking about? Safe from what? Detective DeSoto took a breath, steeling herself. From your wife, Mr. Halston. Before I could respond, the hallway lights flickered. Then the PA system crackled alive with static, just static. Teachers peered out from classrooms. A janitor stopped mid-mop. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The static cut out. Then a distorted voice filled the speakers. A woman's voice. A voice I'd known for 12 years. Daniel, take Owen and leave the school. Now. My blood froze. It was Jenna, but the voice wasn't frightened. It wasn't frantic. It was controlled, cold, almost mechanical. "Don't trust anyone," the voice said. "Especially them." The speakers went dead. The detective spun toward me. "Mr. Halston, do not listen to her. We need to get your son." The hallway lights went dark. Emergency alarms blared. Somewhere outside, a car engine revved hard. Too close. Detective DeSoto grabbed her radio. "Code red at Brookdale Elementary. Lockdown now." I stumbled backward, heart pounding so violently it hurt, because I suddenly knew. This wasn't just some secret trial or shady research group, or a wife who'd lost her mind. This was bigger, darker, carefully orchestrated. And Jenna wasn't running. She was coming for us. And she wasn't alone. I used to think our life was boring in the best possible way. Safe, predictable, ordinary. Turns out, boring was just the mask hiding a monster I didn't see coming. Before everything blew up, Jenna and I lived in Silverton, Pennsylvania, a quiet suburb where the biggest scandal was a PTA mom screaming at a bake sale. We met 12 years ago when she was a brand new nursing grad and I was working 60 hours a week as a financial analyst trying to climb the corporate ladder. She was warm, sharp, quick with sarcasm. Nothing like the cold, controlled voice that came through the school's speakers hours ago. Back then, she made me feel seen, like I mattered. I didn't have much family, just an older brother who moved to Arizona and basically vanished from my life. Jenna, though, she made me feel like we were building something together. When she got the offer at St. Luke's Hospital, it felt like a fresh start for both of us. A good hospital, good pay, good hours. She made friends fast, other nurses, doctors, a few administrators. But the name she mentioned most often was Dr. Elias Rennick. "Elias is just brilliant," she'd say. "Elias helped me with this case. Elias is publishing another paper." At first, it didn't bother me. I mean, she worked in healthcare, close-knit teams, long shifts, everyone relying on each other. But the way she talked about him changed over time. Less admiration, more awe. I chalked it up to professional respect. I was wrong. Looking back, the first flags were small, stupid, easy to ignore. About a year ago, Jenna started taking research shifts. Not exactly overtime, not exactly part of her job. Pilot programs, she called them. Case follow-ups. She'd leave before sunrise and come back after dark, smelling faintly of rubbing alcohol and metal. Whenever I asked what those research shifts were, she'd get vague science jargon, medical terms, things she knew I couldn't check. We started growing distant. Not openly fighting, just drifting. Sleepless nights, skipped dinners, her showering the moment she got home, as if washing something off. Then last fall, she started using a passcode on her phone. Jenna had never locked her phone in 10 years of marriage. When I asked her why, she laughed it off. "HIPAA laws," she said. "Work stuff." I believed her. Because why wouldn't I? She was my wife. But the biggest sign, the one that haunts me now, was when she insisted Owen needed immune panel testing. She said she noticed patterns in his energy levels that could suggest a deficiency. I hadn't seen anything wrong. He ran around, played soccer, begged for snacks like any 9-year-old boy, but Jenna kept pushing it. She even brought home pamphlets about early-stage immunological disorders, all from Vanguard Research Group. I should have wondered why. I should have asked why a pediatric nurse practitioner was suddenly tied to a private pharmaceutical research lab. Instead, I let her schedule those appointments. But then something weird happened. Every time the test day arrived, Jenna suddenly canceled. "Bad timing," she'd say. "Clinics backed up. Let's wait for better results." She was stalling. She wasn't trying to diagnose him. She was waiting. Then 2 months ago, I caught a glimpse of her email when she left her laptop open, just long enough to see a message subject line, a 17 dosing schedule adjustment, approved. But when I tried to scroll, she slammed the laptop shut so fast she almost broke the hinge. I laughed it off at the time. She didn't. Now here we are. A vial in my son's coat. A syringe. A notebook with his initials. My wife disappearing with a research director who's been under federal investigation twice but never charged. And the worst part? The moment I heard her voice on that school PA system, calm, commanding, almost rehearsed, I realized something I'm still struggling to accept. Jenna didn't fall into something dangerous. She walked into it, and she chose it over us. But I'm gonna find out why. And I'm gonna find out what the hell they plan to do to my son. And most terrifying of all, why they suddenly need him now. Detective DeSoto pushed me and Owen out a side door of the school while officers locked down every hallway behind us. The cold air outside slapped me awake, but my thoughts were spinning so fast they barely made sense. I kept replaying Jenna's voice in my head. Not scared, not frantic, warning me, or pretending to. I still didn't know. Owen clung to my sleeve, his fingers trembling. Dad, why did Mom sound like that? Is she mad at us? No, I lied. She's just confused right now. But the truth was uglier than anything I could say out loud. A black SUV screeched up next to us. DeSoto shoved us inside. We're taking you to a secure location, she said. We don't know how compromised your home is. Compromised? I snapped. By my wife. You think she's coming after us? DeSoto didn't answer, which was an answer. We pulled out of the parking lot as more squad cars surrounded the school. Kids pressed their faces to the windows, looking scared and confused. I hated that Owen had to see this, his world cracking open before he even understood the rules. A block away, DeSoto's phone buzzed. She put it on speaker. This is DeSoto. A frantic voice came through. Detective, Jenna Halston's access badge was used at St. Luke's Research Wing 20 minutes ago. My heart stopped. She returned. I whispered. No, the voice said. We checked the cameras. It wasn't her. There was a pause. It was Dr. Rennick. He used her badge. DeSoto cursed quietly. What did he access? Another pause. Then, cold storage room 3. Experimental compounds were removed. Multiple vials of a series agents. My chest tightened. A series. A 17. The same compound in the vial Owen accidentally brought to school. Where's hospital security? DeSoto demanded. They tried to stop him. He had authorization codes. High-level ones. Higher than Jenna's. How high? She asked. Board of directors level. I felt every muscle in my body lock. Jenna didn't have that kind of authority, but someone gave it to her. Or to him. And if Rennick had authority at that level, whatever he and Jenna were caught up in wasn't some secret side project. It was bigger, organized, maybe even protected. Owen leaned into me, whispering, Dad, I'm scared. I know, buddy. I know. DeSoto hung up and looked at me through the rearview mirror. Daniel, I need you to tell me everything Jenna's been doing the past 6 months. Every trip, every shift, every late night, anything. I already told you. She started taking research shifts. This isn't just research. DeSoto cut me off. Rennick was suspended by 2 hospitals before St. Luke's, both times for irregularities in pediatric studies. Why wasn't he arrested? DeSoto hesitated. Powerful allies, private funding, NDAs. Who the hell funds experiments on kids? I snapped. Her answer chilled me. People who profit from the results. The car fell silent. We reached the precinct's underground garage, and DeSoto ushered us into a secure interview room. An officer dropped off sweatshirts and water bottles for us. Owen curled up on a bench, exhausted. I sat across from DeSoto, elbows on my knees, head pounding. What aren't you telling me? I asked. She leaned back, arms crossed. We think Vanguard Research Group has been running off-the-books pediatric trials for at least 2 years. Illegal ones. Children who were randomly diagnosed with rare conditions that didn't exist before the trial started. My stomach twisted. I remembered Jenna pushing for immune panels for Owen. Just to be safe, she'd said. Just to rule things out. So they make kids sick, then profit off the treatments? I whispered. DeSoto nodded slowly. That's our working theory. And Jenna? My voice cracked. Where does she fit in? DeSoto hesitated. We don't believe she was coerced. I swallowed hard. We think, she continued quietly. She was a fully active participant. My vision blurred. No, no, you don't understand. Jenna loves. Before I could finish, another detective burst into the room, breathless. Maria, we have a problem. She stood sharply. What now? Traffic cam picked up the Halston's SUV leaving town 10 minutes ago. I blinked. What? But Jenna isn't. The detective cut me off. She wasn't driving. The room went cold. Then who? I whispered. The detective answered with a single sentence that made my blood run ice cold. A child was seen in the back seat. I shot to my feet. Owen is right here. The detective's face tightened. Not your son. Silence fell. Heavy. Horrifying. DeSoto's voice was barely above a whisper. Daniel, we believe Jenna and Rennick are already testing on another kid. And suddenly I knew. This wasn't just about saving my son anymore. Something much larger had already begun. I didn't think anything could break me more than seeing the vial in Owen's coat pocket. I was wrong. Detective DeSoto marched us into a conference room where a wall of monitors displayed traffic cam footage, timestamps flickering in the corner. One grainy image was paused. A silver SUV flying through a yellow light. My wife's. A child's silhouette sat in the back seat. Definitely not Owen. Smaller. Slumped forward. The room buzzed around me. Officers on radios, analysts zooming in on plates, but I couldn't hear any of it. My pulse roared like a freight train. DeSoto tapped the screen. That's the Halston vehicle. But look, she hit play. A second silver SUV followed close behind it. Almost identical. What the hell? I breathed. We think they're running a two-car formation, she said. Decoys. Coordinated escape. They're prepared, another detective added. This wasn't impulsive. It's planned. Planned. That word lodged in my chest like a knife. Jenna didn't just join something. She built something. A moment later, a tech came in holding a tablet. We pulled call logs from the cell tower near the school right as the PA system was hijacked. My head snapped up. Hijacked? Yes, the tech said. Someone patched into the school's emergency broadcast system remotely. Security-grade encryption. You need serious equipment for that. DeSoto took the tablet and handed it to me. You should see this. The call logs weren't from Jenna. They were from my house. My breath left me all at once. What do you mean from my house? Owen and I were at the school. The tech zoomed into an IP address. This came from a device connected to your home network. A restricted access laptop. My brain screamed at me to reject it. That's impossible, I whispered. Jenna's work laptop is locked down, and she wasn't at the house. That's the thing, he said quietly. She didn't need to be. He pulled up a second log. Look at the timestamp. The chill that rolled over me felt like stepping naked into a freezer. Yesterday, mid-afternoon, while I'd been at work, while Owen had been at school. Someone accessed the laptop then. Someone with clearance. Someone in my house. My phone buzzed. A new message. From Jenna. But the preview text wasn't hers. It read, "You should have checked the basement." My hands shook as I opened the message. It wasn't a text. It was a video. DeSoto leaned in. Play it. I hit the screen. The video was dim, lit only by one bare bulb swinging overhead. The camera panned slowly, revealing shelves lined with medical supplies. Vials, syringes, containers marked with biohazard symbols. It was my basement. My basement. The camera kept moving, then stopped. And there, standing beside Jenna, was someone I never expected in my life. My older brother, Mark. The same brother I hadn't seen in 7 years. The same brother who vanished after some bad choices. The same brother who cut contact, changed numbers, disappeared. He smiled into the camera. Hey, little brother. My legs almost gave out. Mark stepped closer, holding a small silver keycard between his fingers. Vanguard's logo stamped across the top. You always thought I couldn't get my life together, he said, grinning like he was giving a toast. Turns out, I just needed the right business partners. My throat closed. Jenna slid an arm around him like they'd known each other forever. Daniel, she said softly, you should have trusted me. I told you I was doing important work. I stared, frozen, as Mark looked straight into the lens. You're good with numbers. Always have been. You'll appreciate this. Then, do you know how much a successful pediatric claim trial pays on the insurance market? He winked. 7 figures. My stomach flipped. Jenna whispered something into his ear. He laughed and nodded. Then he stepped closer to the camera. Oh, and one more thing. He lifted the keycard, holding it like a trophy. Vanguard didn't recruit Jenna first. He smiled wider. They recruited me. I staggered backward from the table. DeSoto grabbed my arm. Daniel, what does this mean? Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Because that video wasn't just a betrayal. It was a roadmap, a warning, a declaration. And the part that broke me most? It was filmed in my house. Meaning they'd been inside recently. Maybe while we slept. Maybe while I stood in the shower. Or sat at the kitchen table. Or tucked Owen into bed. My wife. My brother. Together. And now a child, someone else's child, was already in their SUV. I finally forced the words out. My voice shredded. They're not running from the police. I looked up, horror crystallizing into certainty. They're finishing something. The video ended and the room felt like it tilted sideways. My own brother. My wife. Standing shoulder to shoulder in my basement. Like it was their personal lab. Like our home meant nothing except storage for whatever the hell they were planning. Detective DeSoto lowered the tablet slowly. Daniel, she said carefully, we need to treat this as a multi-state criminal operation. This is bigger than Vanguard, bigger than the hospital. This looks like an independent pipeline, distribution, research, test subjects, payouts. No, I said, not independent. I clenched my fists hard enough my nails carved crescents into my palms. It's personal. And it was. Every piece of it. Jenna. My brother Mark. The betrayal wasn't random. It wasn't collateral damage. They had been building something right under my nose, using my house, my Wi-Fi, my damn basement, because I was the perfect idiot. Reliable, predictable, blindly trusting. I felt sick. DeSoto turned to another officer. Lock down the Halston residence. We need a warrant and a hazmat team. I grabbed her arm. No, she blinked. Excuse me? No one goes in that house yet. Not until I know exactly what they left behind. Daniel, that's not your call. It is? I snapped, surprising even myself with the force of it. You think they didn't booby-trap it? You think Mark, my brother, who's been running cons since he was 16, you think he didn't leave something waiting for the cops? Her silence was answer enough. I stepped closer. I know their patterns. I know how Mark thinks. If you storm that house, someone's getting hurt. DeSoto exhaled slowly. Fine. Then what is your plan? I looked around the room at all the detectives, the analysts, the techs. Everyone staring at me like I was about to splinter apart. But something inside me had already shifted. I wasn't breaking. I was burning. Jenna and Mark aren't hiding, I said quietly. They're staging. Staging what? DeSoto asked. I swallowed hard. A live trial. On the child they took? She asked. I shook my head, dread crawling up the back of my neck. No. On multiple kids. DeSoto frowned. We don't have evidence of that. Yes, we do, I said. Because that notebook found in Owen's jacket only had one date on it. I grabbed the printout of the notebook photo from the table and pointed at the top of the page. 3 initials. 3 dates. 3 dosage levels. Owen was the last. The final slot. And the date next to the second set of initials was today. I lifted my eyes slowly, letting the truth settle like poison in the room. They're planning a synchronized trial. More data. More outcomes. More value. And they need to finish before we catch them, DeSoto said. I nodded grimly. Exactly. So where would they take the subjects? She asked. Not a hospital, I said. Not a lab they're known to use. Somewhere unmonitored. Somewhere remote. Daniel, she pressed. Think. And I did. Mark's words in the video echoed through my head. You should have checked the basement. The way he said it wasn't mocking. It was instructive, directing me, pointing me at something. So I replayed every memory I had of my brother before he vanished. The camping trips we took as kids. The abandoned places we explored as teens. The way he always gravitated toward isolation. Then it hit me like a punch to the chest. My voice came out hollow. Green hollow. DeSoto frowned. What's that? It's an abandoned retreat center upstate, I said. Mark and I went there once when we were teenagers. Old cabins, disconnected power grid, no cell service. It's been empty for years. Perfect place for an illegal trial, one of the detectives muttered. And bunkers, I said. Old maintenance bunkers with cold storage capabilities. The moment I said it, the room moved into action. Maps were pulled up. Coordinates located. Teams assembled. But the deeper the planning went, the more a pit opened in my stomach. Because every logical step ended the same way. Jenna and Mark would run if threatened. They knew procedure. They knew law enforcement. They'd disappear into 100 back roads and black market channels. And I knew the truth the detectives didn't want to say. If Jenna and Mark felt cornered, they wouldn't risk breaking down the operation. They'd destroy evidence, including human evidence. The kids. Detective DeSoto placed a hand on my shoulder. We're going in at dawn. Carefully. Strategically. No, I said. You are not walking in there alone, Daniel, she warned. This isn't a movie. You will get yourself killed. It doesn't matter, I said quietly. She froze. But I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was a father. And I realized in that moment something that scared me more than anything Jenna or Mark could do. I was willing to do whatever it took. Even things I never thought I was capable of. Because this wasn't about justice anymore. It was about stopping them before they hurt another child. Or came back for mine. I looked at DeSoto, my decision already made. I'm going to Green Hollow tonight. No, she stepped toward me, voice rising. Absolutely not. Zero chance. You're not prepared. You don't have training. I'm not asking your permission. Her jaw clenched, furious. Daniel, I met her eyes. You told me an hour ago that my wife was part of a criminal operation. You told me my son was a target. You told me another child is already missing. What do I have left to lose? She opened her mouth, then shut it. Because we both knew the answer. Nothing. I turned toward the door. My legs felt steady for the first time all day. And then, without warning, DeSoto called after me. Daniel. I stopped. She hesitated, then said, If you're going in tonight, you're not going alone. I frowned. You're coming. No, she said. I'm not stupid enough to follow a desperation plan that violates half of federal protocol. Then she smirked darkly. But I know someone who is. A second later, the door opened, and a man stepped into the room. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a tactical vest with no name patch. His face was half hidden in shadow. But when he spoke, my blood turned to ice, because it was a voice I hadn't heard in years. Hey kid. Long time. My throat tightened. The man standing in the doorway was my father. The man who walked out of my life when I was 16. The man I hadn't forgiven. The man I thought was dead. And the man who clearly wasn't. He nodded once. Let's go get your boy. I stared at the man in the doorway like he'd been ripped out of a nightmare I'd worked hard to forget. My father, Ray Halston. Gone since I was 16. A ghost who vanished after a lifetime of bad deals, shady friends, and broken promises. He looked older now. Grayer. Harder. But his eyes were exactly the same, dark, calculating, always scanning every angle of a room. Detective DeSoto crossed her arms. Ray's been consulting for us on off-grid criminal networks. He's familiar with the type of operators your brother's mixed up with. I barked a bitter laugh. Yeah, no kidding. He raised one of them. Ray didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped further into the light. You done feeling sorry for yourself? He asked quietly. Or you ready to do something? Every muscle in my body tensed. You don't get to talk to me like that. He shrugged. Doesn't matter how I talk. You need me. The hell I do. Daniel, DeSoto interjected sharply. Right now, Ray is the only person in this building who knows Green Hollow inside and out. I turned sharply. What are you talking about? How the hell would he know anything about? Ray sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Because I used it first. The room went silent. My pulse thudded painfully in my ears. Ray continued, voice low. Before you were even born, that retreat center wasn't for church camps and hiking clubs. It was a distribution hub, a staging ground for off-record shipments, pharma, medical equipment, stolen compounds. A vault for storing things no one wanted traced. My stomach twisted. You're telling me you ran illegal shipments through Green Hollow? I'm telling you, he said. Your brother learned from the best. The words hit like a physical blow. There it was. The second betrayal. The deeper twist. Mark didn't fall into this world out of desperation. He didn't get lured by money or power. He grew up in it. Because of him. Ray stepped closer, tone sharp. You want to know why Mark got recruited? Why he got badges, codes, access? Because he already knew how to operate off-grid. I taught him before I walked away from everything. Before I walked away from you. I felt dizzy. So this entire time, Mark wasn't the screw-up. He was what? Your prodigy? Your successor? No, Ray said firmly. He was supposed to leave it behind. But he didn't. He rebuilt the old network with new players. Jenna, Rennick, Vanguard's dropouts. And they're more dangerous than anything I ever ran with. I sank into a chair, burying my face in my hands. Everything was twisted. Everything was wrong. And every road led back to family rot I didn't even know I was standing on. Ray sat across from me, leaning forward. Daniel, listen. You didn't inherit this life. Mark did. But right now, he's ripping kids into something he thinks he can control. And Jenna, she's blinded by whatever Rennick promised. Money, breakthroughs, power. Who knows? I looked up sharply. What do they want, Dad? Why my son? Why any kid? Ray's jaw tightened. They're trying to recreate something. DeSoto crossed her arms. Recreate what? Ray hesitated just long enough to make my skin crawl. A formula that was developed decades ago. A formula that was supposed to enhance immune responses in pediatric cases. Enhance. I repeated. You mean alter? He didn't deny it. It was shut down after it caused neurological crashes in test subjects. Kids. My blood froze. You ran that, I whispered. Didn't you? Ray met my eyes, haunted. I transported the materials. I never touched the kids. But I watched good people lose themselves chasing a miracle. And I watched worse people profit from suffering. My throat tightened. And now Mark's trying to finish the job. Ray nodded grimly. With a modern version. A series compounds. Vanguard's fingerprints are all over it. Whether the board knows or not. DeSoto snapped. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Because I thought it was dead, he said. I buried everything connected to that project. Destroyed what I could. Went dark. But Mark is smarter than I ever gave him credit for. He dug up old contacts. Old locations. Old formulas. And Jenna, I choked out. She fell in with people who promised her godhood, Ray said quietly. The power to cure what no one else can. Or to create the illness in the first place. I felt my hands tremble. So Green Hollow, I said slowly. Mark's not just running a trial. Ray nodded once. He's running the trial. The one the original project never completed. My heart slammed in my chest. And my son? Would have been their final control subject, Ray finished. A healthy child baseline. The perfect data point. I bolted to my feet. We're leaving, I said. Now. DeSoto stepped forward. Daniel, wait. We still need... No, I said, voice steady and deadly calm. They're not finishing this trial. They're not hurting that kid. And they're not touching Owen again. Ray stood too. This won't be clean, he warned. And it won't be legal. I don't care. You ready to get dirty? He asked quietly. I turned toward the door. I'm ready to end them. Ray cracked a ghost of a smile. Then let's go. But before we reached the exit, an officer sprinted in, face pale. Detective DeSoto, you need to see this. He held up a tablet. Green Hollow just went dark. No thermal signatures. No satellite pings. No movement. Meaning? DeSoto asked. The officer swallowed hard. Meaning someone cut the power grid. The whole area's offline. They're preparing for something. Ray muttered. They're starting early. My chest tightened. What does that mean? Ray looked at me, eyes full of something I'd never seen on him before. Fear. It means, he said quietly, you're already running out of time. By the time we reached the mobile command van outside the precinct, rain had started, tapping against the metal roof like impatient fingers. The mood around us shifted, detectives moving faster, radios crackling harder, tension thickening like a storm front rolling in. But none of that hit me as hard as what Ray said next. Because he didn't wait for me to ask. He didn't ease into it. He just dropped the truth like a bomb meant to shatter whatever hope I still had left. Daniel, he said, voice low and cold. You need to understand why they're doing this. Why Jenna? Why Mark? Why kids? I braced myself. But I wasn't prepared. Vanguard's original formula? What the A-series evolved from? It wasn't designed to cure illness, Ray said. It was designed to create a controllable medical dependency. I blinked. What does that even mean? It means, Ray continued, they wanted to engineer a condition they alone could treat. A condition triggered in early childhood. Something subtle at first. Something parents would mistake for common issues. Fatigue, low immunity, occasional crashes. My blood went cold. And then, I whispered. And then, he said, when symptoms escalated, Vanguard would sell the only medication that keeps the child alive. I felt sick. That's not medicine, I said. That's extortion. On children. Ray nodded. Exactly. Why would Jenna? Because she believes she's saving them. Ray cut in sharply. That's how they got her. That's how people like Rennick operate. They don't lure you with money first, they lure you with meaning, purpose. They tell you you're part of a medical revolution, that the world doesn't understand true breakthroughs until someone forces it to. My head spun. So Jenna isn't just part of this, I said slowly. She's devoted. Ray nodded once. Fanatic level. My chest tightened painfully. She loves Owen. She loves the version of Owen she thinks needs her, Ray said. But she always believed you were coddling him, weakening him. She's been studying him like a case file for months. I staggered, grabbing the edge of the table. He continued. She thinks administering A17 to Owen would have proven something huge, that even a healthy baseline child could be strengthened by controlled immunological enhancements. Strengthened, I spat. It would have poisoned him. Ray didn't argue. She's convinced herself it's evolution. The cruelty in that idea hit me so hard I nearly gagged. You mean she thinks she's improving kids by making them sick? Ray nodded slowly. And Mark? Well, Mark's motivation is worse. I clenched my fists. Tell me. He wants profit, Ray said flatly. He's always wanted it. When the original formula collapsed decades ago, he grew obsessed with the idea that he could resurrect it. Perfect it. Own it. My voice broke. So he used my wife. Ray didn't soften. He used everyone. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. Mark wasn't trying to poison Owen, Daniel. He was trying to prove you were blind. I froze. What? Ray's jaw hardened. Mark told me once, years ago, that you were the perfect Mark because you always assumed the best in people. Always. And he said the only way to break you was through someone you trusted completely. My breath caught in my throat. He recruited Jenna, Ray said, because he knew you'd never question her. He knew she could install equipment in your house. He knew she could access your son without raising suspicion. My stomach twisted. Ray wasn't done. And he knew that when the time came, her betrayal would destroy you more than anything he could do himself. I took a shaky step backward. He wanted to hurt me, I whispered. Personally, Ray's voice lowered. He wants to erase you. You represent the life he thinks he was supposed to have. My hands trembled. My vision blurred. And Jenna? I forced out. Why would she leave a family for this? For him? For Rennick? Ray didn't hesitate. Because she never believed she belonged in the life you built. She thought she was meant for bigger things. And Rennick fed that delusion piece by piece. Silence fell thick and heavy. Detective DeSoto stepped closer. You asked earlier what they want, she said. Well, here it is. The truth. The reason behind every awful thing they've done. Her eyes were bleak. They want control. Over illness. Over treatment. Over the market. Over parents who would pay anything to save their children. My hands curled into fists. And to prove their formula can create that dependency, DeSoto added, they need a controlled test group. Multiple kids in the same window. Same batch. Same environment. My heart slammed against my ribs. And Green Hollow, I whispered, is their ground zero. Ray nodded grimly. They're not running from the authorities, Daniel, he said. They're finishing their masterpiece. I felt something inside me crack. Loud and final. Jenna wasn't misguided. She wasn't manipulated. She wasn't overwhelmed. She was driven, cold, clinical, obsessed. And Mark wasn't opportunistic. He wasn't desperate. He wasn't lost. He was vicious, calculated, cruel, fueled by decades of resentment toward me. I forced myself to meet Ray's eyes. I'm going to Green Hollow. He nodded. And I'm coming with you. DeSoto stepped forward too. We're staging a perimeter. But once you're in, no promises, no protocol. You could lose everything. I looked between them, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt clarity. Real clarity. Sharp as a blade. I'm not going there to talk, I said. I'm going there to end this. Ray put a hand on my shoulder. Then let's finish what they started. The drive to Green Hollow felt like moving through a tunnel with no end. Just darkness and the sound of rain hammering the windshield. My father drove, eyes fixed ahead, jaw clenched like he was fighting ghosts only he could see. Behind us, 2 unmarked SUVs followed at a distance. Not close enough to be spotted. Close enough to act if everything went to hell. We turned off onto an unpaved road swallowed by trees. The headlights cut through endless branches. The forest pressing in tight, damp, and silent. This place hadn't been used by normal people in decades. Perfect for something monstrous. My phone buzzed. A blocked number. A text. From Jenna. If you come here, Daniel, you won't like what you find. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I shut the phone off. No more warnings. No more lies. When we reached the property line, the SUVs behind us stopped. Just like we planned. From here on, it was me and Ray. And whatever waited in those buildings. The retreat center looked worse than I remembered. Half-collapsed cabins. Rusted metal roofs. Overgrown weeds swallowing the paths. But one building, an old maintenance hall, still had lights inside. Faint. Generator-powered. Ray grabbed my arm before we approached. You don't hesitate, he said. Not with these people. Not with your brother. They use hesitation like a weapon. I'm not hesitating, I said. And for once I meant it. We approached the building quietly. Inside, voices echoed. Jenna's, Mark's, Rennick's. And then, a small, soft sound that nearly knocked me out of my own body. A child crying. I moved before Ray could stop me. We crept up to the cracked window and peered inside. There were 3 children, maybe 7 or 8 years old, strapped to cots, for lines running into their arms. Monitors blinking erratically. On a metal table were open vials labeled A17, A18, A19. Next to them, notebooks scribbled with symptoms, times, and doses. Mark stood over one of the kids, inserting another syringe into a vial. Jenna paced nearby, hands shaking. Not with fear but with impatience. We don't have time, she snapped. The baselines are incomplete. Dosage clustering hasn't stabilized. Rennick tightened and 4-line. It will. Once the readings spike, we can recalibrate. And if they crash? Jenna asked. Rennick shrugged. Then we adjust the next cohort. Next cohort. My stomach twisted. Ray leaned close to my ear. You see it now? They're too deep to stop themselves. But something was wrong. Jenna wasn't acting like a mastermind anymore. She was frantic, obsessed, like she was trying to prove something and failing. Then Mark dropped the biggest truth of the night. You promised Owen would be part of this, he snarled at Jenna. We needed a healthy control. Without him, the trial is worthless. My blood went ice cold. Jenna snapped back. He would have been if Daniel hadn't interfered, if you hadn't gotten sloppy at the house. Sloppy. They'd been in our home so often she considered mistakes sloppy. Ray squeezed my shoulder. You ready? He whispered. I stepped back from the window and breathed in until my chest hurt. Yes. We slipped inside the building through a side door. The hallway was dark, dusty, lined with old maintenance tools and forgotten machinery. At the end of the corridor was the room we'd just seen. My heart pounded like it was trying to break free of my ribs. Ray signaled me forward. I didn't wait. I kicked the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Mark spun around, syringe still in hand. Jenna froze mid-step. Rennick's mouth opened, some half-formed command or threat, but he didn't finish it. Because the moment Jenna saw me, her expression shifted. Not fear, not remorse, annoyance, like I'd interrupted her at work. Daniel, she said coldly, you shouldn't be here. You experimented on children, I said, voice shaking with fury. You were going to use Owen, our son. She lifted her chin. If you understood the science, say his name, I snapped. Jenna's eyes flickered. Say his name. Owen, she whispered. My throat tightened. Rennick stepped forward, hands raised. Mr. Halston, listen. Ray cut him off with a punch so fast the crack echoed through the room. Rennick hit the ground hard, blood pouring from his nose. Mark lunged at me, grabbed my jacket, shoving me backward. You should have stayed out of this, he shouted. You always ruin everything. I grabbed his arm, twisted, slammed him against the nearest cot. He swung wildly, but rage makes people stupid. I dodged easily. You wanted to ruin me? I snarled. This is how you do it? By torturing kids. Mark spat blood onto the floor. You took the life I deserved, he growled. You took family, stability, opportunity. I should have had your life. Not you. You left, I shouted. You walked away. I walked into something bigger, he said. Something you were too small to understand. Ray pulled him away and slammed him into a metal cabinet. Mark crumpled. Jenna moved toward a tray of vials like she meant to destroy them. No, I shouted. Step away. She paused, hands trembling. Daniel, you don't get it, she whispered. We could have saved so many. We could have changed medicine. This is evolution. This, I said, gesturing to the 3 terrified children, is cruelty. Her eyes finally cracked. Just a flicker of something like guilt. And for a split second, I saw the woman I married. The woman who held Owen's tiny hand in hospital nurseries. The woman who used to cry watching medical documentaries. But then it vanished. Jenna straightened, steel returning to her spine. You ruined everything, she whispered. No, I said. I stopped you. Outside, blue lights flashed through the windows. Detective DeSoto's voice boomed. Police! Everyone freeze. Ray held his hands up immediately. I did too. Jenna didn't. She bolted for the vials. No! I yelled. But an officer tackled her hard before she reached them. Syringes clattered across the floor. Mark tried to run and found himself staring down the barrels of 3 rifles. Rennick sobbed into his hands. The kids cried harder. Fear, confusion, exhaustion. And me? I just stood there, breathing, shaking, finally realizing it was over. Hours later, Green Hollow burned. Controlled fire. Sanctioned. Necessary. Everything inside, equipment, compounds, notebooks, was destroyed under hazmat supervision. Jenna was taken away in cuffs, screaming at me that I didn't understand her purpose. Mark didn't scream. He didn't speak. He just stared at me through the back window of the squad car with a hatred so deep it felt bottomless. Rennick lawyered up before the night was over. Ray stood beside me as the flames climbed higher. "You did good," he said quietly. I didn't answer. I didn't feel like I'd won anything. Not until I saw the ambulance carrying the children pull away. Alive. That was the only thing that mattered. 3 months later, Owen and I moved to Wilkes-Barre, closer to my new job and further from memories that stank like rot. Therapy, routine, peace, slow healing. One afternoon, while packing Owen's lunch, he asked, "Dad, is Mom coming back?" I knelt beside him. "No, buddy. She's not." He nodded slowly. "Because she hurt kids?" "Yeah," I said. "Because she forgot what being good means." He thought about that, then hugged me. I didn't let go for a long time. Final court verdict: Jenna, 40 years without parole. Mark, 55 years for conspiracy, kidnapping, and medical torture. Rennick, 30 years. The kids recovered. Parents cried in my arms when we met. No lawsuits, just gratitude. And Ray? He disappeared again. No note, no number, just gone. Honestly, it felt right. Some ghosts don't belong in the daylight. Last night Owen and I watched a meteor shower from the backyard. He pointed at the sky. "Dad, do you think we're safe now?" I took a long breath. "We are now," I told him. He leaned on my shoulder, trusting me completely. And for the first time since Jenna's voice echoed through that school speaker, I felt like I could finally breathe. "Dad?" Owen asked softly. "Yeah, buddy? You're like those dinosaurs that protected their babies. The strong ones." I laughed quietly. "Yeah? Which ones?" He grinned. "The ones that won." And maybe he's right. Because in the end, after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the horror, we survived. They didn't. And that's the only ending I ever needed.